Sakwalenga bajerechi, ao zingmi kubago. Sakwalenga bajerechi, sakwalenga bajerechi, ao sakwalenga bajerechi, ao zingmi kubago. Sakwalenga bajerechi, ao zingmi kubago. Sakwalenga bajerechi, sakwalenga bajerechi.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the African Music Library Instrument discussion. Here we talk about a variety of African instruments, and today we'll be talking about the Goje. I know a lot of us must have heard about this instrument, especially in northern part of Nigeria. When you go for events, you see performers using the Goje to serenade guests to get offerings and also gifts. Whether it's in Lagos, Abuja, I don't think I would say the East because I've not seen them in the East. But yeah, it's a very popular instrument, and not just in Nigeria, in West Africa. It's one of the most popular West African lutes. And like I mentioned earlier, we probably seen among the Hausas or majorly in Hausa music. It can be played as a solo instrument, which is what we normally see during these events where they play as solo instrument, or it can also feature in an ensemble that has other string, wind, and percussion instruments like the shekere, the calabash drum, which is played with the stick. I'm not exactly sure what it's being called in Hausa, but it's been paired with the calabash drum and also the talking drum that is called gongo in Yoruba. I think in Hausa language it's called the kalangu. It's also classified, aside being classified as a colophone, it's also classified as a full spiked lute. If you remember when we spoke earlier about the gurumi, which is also a popular instrument among the Hausas, we spoke about the gurumi being a full spike lute, like this goje, and full spike in the sense that the neck runs through the resonator, the calabash resonator instead of the skin. But before we get into this information, let me introduce some of the voices that you'll be hearing during the course of our conversation. You've heard them before, and I'm sure you're excited to hear what they have to say about this amazing instrument. First, we have Emmanuel Gala, the president of the African Music Library and Just Play Music. And we have Anu Onosanya, who is the lead and the operations manager for the African Music Library. Please say hello to our listeners.
Hi, listeners. My name is Emmanuel, and I'm happy to be here again to discuss this interesting instrument.
Hi, everyone. I'm also equally excited to be here today to discuss this Goje. I'm really looking forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Emmanuel. Thank you very much, Anu. We are really glad to have you guys back with us to talk about another African instrument, another interesting African instrument, actually. But as usual, let's start from the top. Let's talk about the historical context of this instrument. And I'll be calling on our first speaker, someone who we already know that is well grounded in this, aspect of our discussion, this historical aspect of our discussion, Anu Onosanya, to talk to us about the history and origin of this amazing, brilliantly crafted instrument. And over to you.
Wow, I was just laughing behind the very interesting. Oh, okay. So, thank you very much, Kosi, for the Yorubas to call it akmule, as in the hype. We call it hype normally, but I think we are just all here to share from our learnings, and then it's just like looking at, like for example, looking at a rhombus, and then everybody's seeing different sides of it. I think I'll just put it like that.
Mm.
I'm not an expert in that, but I will share from little I've been able to glean from reading and just learning about the Goje. And I must say, I think the first thing I will say is that the Goje is a very interesting instrument. And I will come to it, I'll circle back to that statement shortly. Because you have an instrument that has an Hausa name that it bears and everybody identifies it with. Though sometimes some people call it the African violin. But interestingly, the Goje can be found across the Sahel, the Sudan, and the Sub-Saharan Africa, which include Nigeria, Ghana, Mali. And every one of them, they have their unique names for the Goje. But what we predominantly call it in Nigeria is Goje. So if you travel down to Mali and Niger, they call it Njaka. If you go all the way close, if you come closer home to the western part of Nigeria, southern part of Nigeria, running down to Ghana, and the Dongamba people call it Gonje, Gojey. Interestingly, and they all been played with the bowstring, the same instrument but different names. But primarily is known as the Hausa name. Interestingly, if you go to Senegal and Gambia again, you see it called Inyayeru or Riti. And it's still the same instrument, but different names. Where did this instrument come from? Is why I said it's a very interesting instrument. Some school of thought say that its origin can be firmly rooted in the emergence of the Malian Empire. That's the Mandinka empire that we have that stretched all across modern day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, the Mandinka people that you can find across that belt. It says that he emerged during that period. Another school of thought also reaffirms to say that he emerged the pre-Islamic era in Nigeria. That's the 13th century, before the Islamic cult tradition and religion was firmly rooted in the northern part of Nigeria. You have the Goje already with the people. Interestingly, I must say, referring to what you said earlier on, that is playing in a trial ensemble with the gong drum and the shakers, from what we said. Interestingly, which is very rare, you see the Goje have a very prominent role in Sakara music in southwest Nigeria among the Yoruba people. The Sakara, though it's no longer really in vogue anymore, but it used to be in the early 50s, early 60s. It was quite prominent. It was having, with the emergence of where you have the Sakara, which also the Goje plays a very prominent role in it, which is very, very rare, because most times you don't see that intertwining of culture like that among the north and the southern part in Nigeria. So you see also the Goje, which is also known as the Mole, play a very critical role in Sakara music. Usually even the lead singer and the lead player is the one fiddling it and is playing while he's singing. So, and that's also reaffirms to say that the Goje is a very interesting instrument. And then when you look at it again, some people say there's a very close resemblance because of the fiddle, of the bowstring rather. It plays a very close resemblance to the violin. And some school of thought says that the violin does not originate from Europe. It was actually taken to Europe by the Moors, into the heart of Europe where they settled, and then it came back to Africa. So that's another school of thought that comes with the Goje again. And you're like, okay, so what is the history behind the Goje? Is a big question. I will not look at it from the historical point of view because of the widespread presence of the Goje across Sahel, Sudan, Sub-Saharan Africa. And I'd rather take a look, sit back and look at it in the role it plays in the musical context, or will I say in the pre-Islamic music that was being played in the northern part of Nigeria. So I'll look at the history from there, and then it takes us now to two key ceremonies that's very similar to what we discussed. I think maybe it was 2 discussions ago about the metal castanet that features prominently in Ghana music, the Ghana music that induces trance. Interestingly, the Goje also, pre-Islamic era, was found in two major traditional culture, which is known as the Bori possession music and the Auka music tradition, found among the Maguzawa Hausa. They found also among the Zama, the Borori, and the Songay people of Niger. As I said, I'll quickly touch base on the role, or will I say, I'll quickly talk on these traditions or these music traditions in relations to Goje. If we remember when we talked about Ghana, we talked about the castanet, how it invokes trance when it's being played, and people are able to, in the Lila ceremony that happens overnight, and then also some traditional singing that is able to inspire people to go into trance. And then we also talked earlier on last year, we also talked about another music tradition from Tunisia, which is called Stambeli, that also induces trance. Interestingly, also induces trance. And then you now come back home to say that the Goji also has that function. And then these two instruments, this trance-like religion, or will I say ceremony, that we see happen in Morocco and see happening in Tunisia, was actually brought in by the slaves, brought from the Sahel, Sudan, Sub-Saharan area, taken to those communities to go work, and then adopted their own religion, brought out their own new religion that induces trance. And then you now see the Bori having roots in the pre-Islamic Hausa religion, where they play, individuals play, they play music, and the worshippers get to a state of ecstasy through which they say that they are able to communicate with ancestral spirits. So they are able to like go into trance, also get to that point of ecstasy that they lose consciousness of the physical realm, and they are able to communicate with the spirit, with the ancestors, which is very strange to the post, or will I say the post-Islamic era in the Hausa kingdom. You rarely hear about trance like that in their religion, in their ceremonies. But you see that the Goje features prominently in this possessing music tradition, which is also similar to what you can see in Ghana, Wana, and then you can also see in Stambeli in Tunisia. Then interestingly, in another religion again, Auka movement in West Africa also, Goje also features prominently there. And this tradition can be found in Niger. If you can remember earlier on, we talked about the Goje being found, having a name in Songay in Niger. So in Niger, in Songay in Niger, they also have a tradition, or will I say music tradition, called the Awuka movement, where individuals play music, and then the mediums, the mediums now enter into the spirit realm and start to mimic the colonial masters, believing that they can obtain some of the powers that the colonial masters have over them. And this was very popular in the 1920s, thereabouts, in Niger. So you see the Goje play a very key instrument, a key role in these traditions. But where did Goje actually, will I say, evolve from? It's very difficult to say, because if you go to Ghana, among the Dangomba people, you see the Goje there, very similar to what you see in Nigeria, and having its own name. And when you go all the way to Mali, you see the same thing there. If you go to Niger, if you go to Senegal, go to Gambia, meaning that the Goje is a very interesting instrument. And unfortunately, its origin was not documented, but the people adopted it into their culture, and then you can see it maintaining almost the same shape as what we have in Nigeria among the Hausa people, but now has a new name, a different identity based on the language of the people that they are using it. So in conclusion, the history of the Goje is very difficult to say, but I would likely want to say I will credit it to some extent to the Malian kingdom. And also, I would like to also credit it to the pre-Islamic era in Nigeria. Though it was said that from one of the biography books that I borrowed from my elder brother last year. And one of the things he said was that during the Islamic conquest in the northern part of Nigeria, in those empires, most of the books, literature from the pre-Islamic era were actually destroyed. So it's very difficult to be able to say that this is where the Goje comes from, but it's been adopted into the post-Islamic religion, will I say, tradition, customs, and is now part and parcel of their community. So it's very difficult to be able to say that it's not from them, but I want to say that its history has been mixed based on the people and the traditions it has passed through, or it has found a place or a meaning in. So thank you very much.
Sakwalenga bajarati, awo sing me kubago. Sakwalenga bajarati,